Morning finds SlumG splayed in fractured light on the hotel floor, the red eye of his phone already blinking for an audience he can't see but can't escape. He cycles through yoga poses, each stretch interrupted by a nervous gear check or a glance at chat, craving a ping, a joke, any sign he's not invisible. When the feed stalls and the screen goes quiet, anxiety creeps in. Did the stream drop? Was it a tech glitch, or has the world turned away? Determined not to let silence swallow him, he amps up the routine, a wobbly push-up challenge, breath ragged, as chat rallies and heckles, flooding the void with encouragement and teasing threats of F outages. Amid the electronic hum and the faint roar of traffic outside, he eyes his battered helmet in the corner, a reflective shell, wondering if it's protection or mask. And in the fragile quiet before the day's ride, he traces a fingertip across its surface, leaving a foggy print that lingers like a question. Who's really watching and who's really seen? SlumG's muscles quivered as he pressed into a shaky downward dog, every vertebra exposed in the cold glow of the camera, his mind looping on the terror of yesterday's swerve. Was he performing resilience or just trying to convince himself? The absence of chat replies felt like an interrogation light. He craved even a stray F or emoji as proof he still existed beyond the lens, not yet a ghost flickering in the surveillance feed. SlumG lingered at the threshold, helmet pressing into his palms as the guesthouse door's chipped paint shimmered under the relentless glare of the mounted phone, each pixel promising witness and judgment from unseen eyes. The air outside pulsed with the absurdity of India's highways, honking, marigold-bright trucks, Shiraz's distant call for chai. But it was the hollow ache in SlumG's chest, that primal dread of crossing from private ritual to live-stream spectacle, that made him pause, knowing even his hesitation would become part of the feed. The door swung open, and SlumG stepped into the jagged sunlight, his breath hitching as the world's gaze sharpened. He could feel each pixel on his skin, the digital threshold as much a barrier as a stage, transforming the raw heat and diesel stench of the highway into a feverish theater of risk. Somewhere above the honking and Shiraz's distant laughter, he wondered if his hesitation had been enough to betray the real fear thrumming beneath the helmet, or if the feed had already collapsed it into performance. One more moment logged, replayed, and owned by the crowd. Trucks screamed past in a blur of chrome and garish gods, each vibration rattling through SlumG's helmet and into his bones, sweat beading beneath his visor as the world shrank to a jittery corridor of asphalt and exposure. He caught himself clenching the bars too tight, heart thundering not just with fear of collision, but of the next outage. Terrified, the real disaster wouldn't be death, but vanishing from the feed, unseen and unremarked. SlumG's mouth was dry as he gunned the throttle past a painted truck, each horn blast pressing a spike of panic through his chest. Not just fear of flesh and metal, but terror that a single frozen frame would be his only legacy. The shadow of the next F outage gnawed at him more than the threat of collision, leaving him suspended between survival instinct and the electric hunger to remain visible, real, and remembered beneath the unblinking digital eye. SlumG stood frozen at the shoulder, helmeted and shaking, while the chat box erupted in a frenzy. Half the messages were anxious check-ins. "Bro, are you okay?" Others devolved into gallows humor. "Did that trucker need the toilet or want content?" And a few tossed out wild theories about Indian highways or clipped the moment for replay. He glanced at his phone, the screen filling with worried emotes and sarcastic Fs. And the realization hit harder than the adrenaline. Every tremor in his hand, every faltering breath, was fodder for strangers he couldn't see, their concern and jokes bouncing helplessly across the digital void. Instead of brushing it off, he let the camera linger as he pulled off his helmet, sweat-streaked and raw, facing the feed head-on, vulnerability not as confession but as spectacle, his brush with danger instantly recycled into memes and shared anxiety. The line between adventure and exhibition thinned to nothing, and as he steadied himself, a new tension flickered behind his eyes. From here on, every risk wasn't just his. It belonged to the crowd, too. SlumG exhaled shakily, hands still trembling on the handlebar as a cold sweat prickled his scalp. Each breath felt less like relief and more like submission, the knowledge of 1,000 invisible eyes tightening around his chest. Without a word, Eric D2K emerged from behind his glowing kettle and pressed a glass of chai into SlumG's hands, his gaze flickering between SlumG's stricken face and the old phone streaming the aftermath. A silent pact that fear and spectacle, here, could never be disentangled. SlumG sat hunched on the chipped bench beneath the neon flicker, the heat of Eric 2K's chai barely steadying the tremor in his fingers as the silence between chat pings stretched longer than seemed possible. For a brief, shimmering moment, the world's gaze felt distant, and the air was thick with marigold, diesel, and the hum of his own pulse. Across the counter, Shirez offered him a conspiratorial nod and a second pour, equal parts comfort and performance, while the smartphone above them streamed every twitch of his jaw, trapping even solace as content in the spiral of endless witness. SlumG sat beneath the marigold-studded tarpaulin, hands cupped around Eric 2K's chai, as Shirez launched into a mock-solemn warning about killer trucks and the dangers of being famous on the highway. The lull was pierced by the shrill ping of a donation and Eric's voice booming for the stream. "Bhai, even your tea break got more subscribers than my whole stall." Phones hovered overhead, recording his nervous laughter and even the trembling of the glass for the inevitable meme. For a moment, SlumG felt the hush of real human company, warmth, advice, a rough joke about sleeping with one eye open. But the glow of the streaming phone and the chat jokes about IRL Truman Show made clear that even here, every refuge was staged and every comfort instantly fed to the crowd. The realization hit sharp as a horn blast. There was no sanctuary, only a pause for the next performance, and even his smallest vulnerabilities had become public property. Night pressed against the thin hotel curtains, and as SlumG lay on the creaking cot, the camera's blue LED glowed in the darkness, an unblinking pupil, making every restless turn and muffled sigh part of the infinite, archived spectacle. Alone, but never unwatched, he felt his skin prickle with a new paranoia. Even his dreams were now content, the haunted hotel jokes from chat echoing in the static hush, each F, a ghostly knock at the door. The hotel room hummed with a low, inescapable tension as SlumG chewed cold chapati on the edge of the cot, every shadow in the corners twitching with the possibility that the camera might capture not just his restlessness, but something unseen, something conjured by the swarm of haunted hotel jokes looping in his head. Alone, he tried to will the lens to blink or falter, just for a second of real privacy, but the blue LED held steady, indifferent as insomnia and digital exposure pressed their weight against his ribs until even the act of closing his eyes felt like a risk. Scrolling through the residue of chat, memes and warnings echoing in a luminous blue haze, SlumG felt the familiar spike of connection curdle into something hollow. every joke and digital pat on the back only deepening his sense of being witnessed, dissected, perpetually performed. He set the phone aside, aware that even in stillness he was never alone, that the risk wasn't only on the road, but in the way intimacy and privacy shattered under the unblinking lens, leaving him exhilarated, exposed, and quietly unsure where he ended and the surveillance began. His own face, ghostly in the screen's reflection, seemed unfamiliar. Caught forever between the roles of daredevil and specimen, he wondered if the real danger was never being able to step off stage, even in the quietest hour. Outside, the neon haze and distant horns bled through the window, a reminder that every heartbeat and hesitation would start the loop again. Each morning, both a reset and a reckoning under the perpetual gaze. SlumG's hands hovered over the blinking phone, the muscle memory of performance now tinged with an ache. The audience's gaze no longer just a comfort, but a pressure that seeped into his bones and slowed each movement. Outside the window, the neon haze pressed in as the world waited for his next broadcast, and he found himself hesitating, caught between the urge to step out and the dread that the spiral of being watched would never loosen its grip.